Chapter 81 New Materials. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Smaug bit the dust, a bright red dragon egg plopped right into Levi's backpack. Fire dragon egg. Gotta keep it warm, near some magma. Levi pulled his sword from the dragon's jaw, breathing a sigh of relief. The battle was over, the sword gleamed, spotless even after slaying a dragon. Bud emerged from the cave, staring, speechless, at the massive corpse. The stories were true. Your ancestors were great warriors. Your family will be proud, Bard the bowman. Thorin came from another tunnel, greeting the human archer. Dwarves poured out of the secret passage, whooping and hollering. Yeah. It's dead, they circled the dragon's carcass, celebrating. Keely, pumped up, tried to kick the dragon, but just stubbed his toe and hopped around, grimacing. You okay? Your leg shaking a bit. Still hurt? Philly asked, concerned. I'm fine. Just, happy. Thorin gathered the dwarves. The dragon is dead. We've avenged our people. Erebor is once again ruled by the line of Durin. That the cheering died down, and they started talking about what came next. First, we find the Arkenstone. Then, we call for reinforcements. Dane's our best bet to get here quickly. Levi, how many orcs are in Azog's army, think? Without the wargs, probably 20,000 plus. Lots of trolls too, trolls that don't burn up in the sun. My guess? Orogs, some kind of crossbreed. The dwarves' faces fell. The joy vanished. An army of 20,000? What's he talking about? Bard asked, totally lost. Orcs. Wargs. Never heard of them, Thorin explained. He's saying an orc army, tens of thousands strong, is marching on Erebor. They're coming from the mines of Dol Guldur and Moria in Mirkwood, heading north. They'll be here in days. Bard pictured the orcs' route in his head. They'll go right through Lake Town. That he panicked, how could they possibly stand against so many? Lake Town didn't have a real army, just a few guards to keep the peace. They could handle a stray group of orcs, but this. I have to get back there. Bud turned to leave, dragons, treasure, promises. None of it mattered. What he cared about was Lake Town. Erebor will offer shelter, if you need it. Thorin called after him. Bud stopped, glanced back. I know. Then, quick as a flash, he was gone, the dragon corpse left behind. No time to lose, let's find that Arkenstone. Thorin went back to organizing the dwarves. This dragon. He touched Smaug's hide, looking at Levi. Levi had been staring at the corpse, lost in thought, making Thorin uneasy. Levi, you need something? Yeah, some of this stuff's really valuable to me. Take it all. You earned it. And, it's not part of the 1/15th share. Thorin nodded to Levi and followed the dwarves toward the treasure chamber. Only Bilbo and Levi remained. Bilbo didn't know about orc armies or treasure shares. All the hobbit knew was that the dragon was huge and terrifying. He stared at it for a long time, then hesitated. Levi, could I maybe have a scale? As a souvenir? Sure, Bilbo. Plenty of scales to go around. Thanks. You see, I plan on writing some stories when I get back. Thought this would be a good specimen for my book. Like I used to collect leaves and flowers. I even planted some in the yard. Bilbo tucked the scale in his pocket, chatted a bit longer, then followed Thorin, hunting for gems in the vaults. Levi got to work, collecting materials, dragon blood, dragon bone, dragon meat, fire scales, the dragon's heart. This dragon was huge, and it dropped so much loot that Levi had to combine everything into a crate to stash it for later. The crafting table updated, adding recipes for dragon scale armor, dragon weapons, and something called dragon flame steel. This dragon flame steel sounded amazing, armor stronger than netherite and weapons that could beat even the ancient elven blades he carried. But Levi was missing something, dragon fire. The only source, Smog, was now a corpse. Good thing the fire dragon egg had dropped. Once that hatched, he'd be set. Among the drops, Levi found something unexpected: wing membrane. Unlocked the synthesis of elytra. In vanilla Minecraft, you couldn't craft elytra. They were found in ships in the end dimension. But now, thanks to the dragon, Levi could make his own achievement. The sky is the limit, time to take off. Now he could really fly. Levi slapped the elytra on and tested it out in the cavern. Gliding was smooth. With enough practice, he'd never fear falling to his death again. And with Erebor's gunpowder stores, he could make all the fireworks he needed for powered flight. Time to check in with Thorin. Levi headed back through the secret passage, toward the forges. If I remember right, through this gate, then down. Passing a massive dwarven steel furnace, a prompt appeared: added Erebor, Lonely Mountain, series synthesis, added Erebor series multi-block structure, giant high-temperature furnaces, bellows, or transport chains, forging tables, fluid pipelines. A complete dwarven industrial system popped into his crafting menu. Levi was stunned. Chapter 82 Obsession. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Besides the multi-block setups, Levi spotted two familiar items on the crafting table: dwarven wind crossbow and black arrow. The crossbow just needed parts forged and assembled, but the arrow required more complex forging and some experience. Plus, the black arrow had a loyalty thing going on. It proved the rumors were true: you could fire it anywhere, and it'd always find its way back to you. Oh, and it was super effective against dragons and could pierce armor. Lonely Mountain had a bunch of cool stuff unlocked. Levi even saw something that made his heart skip a beat: gears. These things could replace some redstone functions and automate stuff. Like, a lot of the dwarves' gates used similar tech. Remember Smog's secret passage? Just flip a switch, and that massive iron door would rise. Looks like I've got some upgrades to do around the territory when I get back, Levi thought. Found it. Heading toward the cellar, Levi heard a familiar voice. Bilbo had found the Arkenstone first and was handing it to Thorin, whose eyes were instantly glued to it. Thorin snatched the gem, practically drooling. Ah, the heart of the mountain, the Arkenstone. Beautiful. My precious. The king mumbled, and the word precious sent a chill down Bilbo's spine. A dark feeling washed over him, and he felt a little breathless. Boom. Back in Dol Guldur, a giant eye shadow on a ruined tower suddenly snapped its gaze north. I feel its presence. Go, retrieve it. Sauron summoned the 9 ringwraiths and gave them their orders. Where do you think you're going? A voice cut through the air. The giant eye swung around, seeing 3 figures slowly climbing the steps toward the tower: Elrond, Lord of Rivendell; Galadriel, Lady of the Golden Wood; and Saruman, the White Wizard of Isengard. Just their presence sent a wave of threat through Sauron, his eye flickering. Where'd this riffraff come from? Before Sauron could even speak, the orc leader below surrounded him with troops. Withdraw now if you value your existence, Galadriel warned. Ha ha ha. Let's see who gets wiped out first. The orc leader charged forward, roaring. Galadriel simply raised her hand. Boom. A shockwave of power exploded outwards, shaking the very sky. It was so intense, even the heavy clouds above were ripped apart, creating a halo of light. The orc leader and his soldiers were instantly pulverized, reduced to dust without even their armor remaining. Lady Galadriel doesn't mess around. When she says destroy, she means destroy. No one cared about the orcs' demise. The 9 ringwraiths materialized from the void, engaging the 3 invaders. They threw everything they had: dark magic, mental attacks, but nothing stuck. Soon, the ringwraiths were shattered, retreating to Sauron to reform. You cannot defeat me. Sauron unleashed his full power, and darkness engulfed Dol Guldur, trapping everyone inside. The pressure was immense, affecting even Radagast, who was waiting outside. He felt a deep, primal fear. Saruman, though, was the most affected. His eyes widened as he sensed Sauron's raw power, his mind reeling. That's exactly what I want. Darkness smothered everything, making it colorless and dim, but then, another light bloomed from Galadriel, eclipsing even her own radiance, making her seem otherworldly. It was the starlight of Erendil, powered by a Silmaril. The light of the Silmaril was a natural counter to darkness, suppressing Sauron's power and preventing him from using its full force. The battle ended with Sauron's defeat, forcing him back to his fortress of Mordor, the land of shadow. He wouldn't be able to leave for a long time. Oblivious to his master's weakness, the ring continued its allure on the hobbit. "Hey, Bilbo, brought you some milk. Want a drink?" "Thanks, Levi. I'm a little parched." Glug, glug, glug. Bilbo didn't hesitate, chugging the milk in one go, making a satisfied sound. "I feel much better, more energized." "Wow, milk really is good for you. Maybe I should have a glass every day." "Whatever keeps you going." Levi nodded, looking at the hobbit, and suddenly said, "After this is over, can I invite you to my place? I have some experiments and ideas I'd like your help with." "Don't worry, I won't hurt you. Just some simple stuff." "I'll go. It'd be great to visit your territory." "Awesome." Bilbo agreed, not even questioning what experiments Levi had in mind. He had complete trust in his friend. "Thorin, it's time to find reinforcements." Levi interrupted Thorin, who was still lost in the Arkenstone's beauty, snapping him back to reality. Thorin paused, then nodded immediately. "Good." Moments later, at the main gate of Lonely Mountain, a black bird with speckled underwings took flight from Thorin's hand, heading towards the Iron Hills. "Thrush." Seeing Levi's curiosity, Balin explained, "They're magical creatures that live a long time and understand our language. The dwarves who once lived in Erebor tamed some to deliver messages. That one that just flew off must be centuries old, older than me." Balin stroked his white beard, lamenting the passage of time. "After all these years, we've finally returned to our homeland. But..." He looked at Thorin, who hadn't let go of the Arkenstone the entire time, worry etched in his face. "Hopefully, we won't repeat the past." "Don't worry, we won't." "I hope so." "Me too." Levi equipped his elytra and said to Balin, "Get things ready here. I've got something I need to take care of. I'll be back soon." He ran towards the city wall. "The stairs are over there," Balin called out. "I know." Whoosh! Levi jumped, eliciting gasps from the dwarves. They rushed to the wall and looked down. Swoosh! The next moment, with a whoosh, they saw Levi soaring through the air, wings extended, marveling at the sight. "Are those wings? I want to try." Bomber exclaimed, never taking his eyes off the distant figure. Beaufort-eyed Bomber's wide build with a mixture of amusement and concern. "Nah, for your own sake, probably best not to." Chapter 83 Urgent Information. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Changhu Town. No matter what's happening in the world, folks here believe living for today is all that matters. Life's already tough enough without worrying about things you can't change. The lakes and rivers around town aren't just where they get their food, they're also like a natural wall that protects them. If they cut off the bridges, most enemies can't get in, but Bard knows that won't stop Oak. Bane, pack your stuff. Take your sister and get out of here. Head north, far away, and find the dwarves. What's going on, Dad? Why are we leaving so suddenly? Bane's eyes widened, totally confused. Bard grabbed his shoulders, looking him straight in the eye. Listen, Bane, there's an army of Oaks coming. They'll bring death and destruction. You can't stay here. What about you? I'm going to warn the townspeople. They have no idea what's coming. They need to know. Bane started to say something, but his dad's serious look stopped him. He knew he had to protect his family. Oh, those two elves that were staying with us, where did they go? They're still near Changhu Town. The lakeside bridge. Legolas looked at the town, where they often traded, and frowned. Something felt wrong. I feel like something bad is coming, Toriel. Maybe it's just your imagination. Toriel, on the other hand, was looking north. She touched something small in her hand and said, "They've been gone a while. If something happened, we'd know by now. Maybe their mission went off without a hitch." They seemed to be talking about the same thing, but not really. "Lord Legolas," an elf rode up from a distance. He pulled up in front of them and told Legolas, "The king wants you back." "What about Toriel?" "She's been banished. Tell my father that if Toriel has nowhere to go, neither do I." The messenger elf just shook his head. He couldn't make Legolas do anything. All he could do was deliver the message. "Let's go, Toriel." "Where to?" "To Gundabad." "Why there?" Legolas borrowed the messenger's horse and told Toriel, "That's where my mother died in battle. I've never been there, and my father never talks about it. I want to see it." Toriel didn't know what to say. It was the king's secret, and it wasn't her place to comment. "Okay, I'll go with you." Almost as soon as Legolas and Toriel rode off, an old man in grey robes came galloping up. He saw the elf standing by the bridge and jumped off his horse. "Greetings, Grey Wanderer," the elf said. "Elf of the woodland realm, what are you doing here?" Gandalf sensed something was up. "I'm here to ask Lord Legolas to return." "Legolas? He's a stubborn one. I doubt this went well." "No, he rode my horse to Gundabad." "Gundabad?" Gandalf's face went grim. "What's he doing there of all places? This is no time for him to be running off, *whoosh, star." Gandalf frowned, hearing a familiar sound overhead, like the fireworks he set off in the Shire last year, but only the launch, not the explosion. He looked up and saw a figure gliding and circling. Then the figure seemed to spot the old man in grey robes and dove down, landing in the water nearby. "Gandalf, what brings you here?" Levi swam ashore, folded his wings, and nodded to the elf. "I was about to ask you the same thing. What's the situation over there?" Seeing Levi, Gandalf felt a little better. "The dragon's dead. Bard and I took him down. You might not know Bard, but he's a descendant of Lord Girion of Riverdale City. He was a huge help. He used black arrows to really hurt the dragon, so I was able to finish him off." "I see, that's great news." Gandalf thought for a moment. "That makes things a little easier. We can get the people of Long Lake Town to take shelter in Erebor. The walls might not have stopped the dragon, but they're pretty solid against oaks. Thorin must have found the Arkenstone by now. If we can hold out until reinforcements arrive, we have a chance." "I agree," Levi said. The woodland elf looked serious, listening to their conversation. He spoke up. "Gandalf, can I borrow your horse?" "Sure, take it. I'm already where I need to be." "Thanks." The elf hurried off, probably to tell the king everything. "I need to go to town. People here don't know what's coming." Gandalf wanted to warn the town as quickly as possible. "What about you, Levi? Need any help?" "I'm here for the same reason. Actually, Bard got here first. I trust him, so I figured I'd come and see. But since you're here, I'm not needed." Levi put his wings back on and grabbed his fireworks. "Where are you going?" "To do what I do best, building walls, maybe some traps." *whoosh, star. A firework ignited, and Levi's wings opened, shooting him into the sky. He started gliding toward the lonely mountain. "What kind of new tech is that?" Gandalf clicked his tongue. Then he focused on what he had to do, but someone had already gathered the townspeople in the center of town. "People of Chanhu Town, listen up," Bard shouted, "an army of oaks is coming. They'll be here in a few days, at the latest. We can't stop them. We have to evacuate now, *whoa, star." The crowd erupted. People were panicked. Some people, trusting Bard, were already heading home to pack. "But where do we go?" "To Lonely Mountain. The king under the mountain has promised to protect us." "Lies." A sneaky guy pushed his way through the crowd, pointing at Bard with a red and swollen eye. "You're a thief, an escaped convict. First thing you do is spread lies to scare the people. Alfred, what I'm saying is true. Okay, even if what our hero says is true, why go to the Lonely Mountain? That's where the dragon lives. You want to feed us to the dragon? I think you've been working with the dragon for a while now. You came back to hurt us. I'm arresting you right now. Point 2 guards stepped forward to arrest Bard. What he's saying is true. An old man in a gray robe squeezed past the guards and stood in front of the crowd. Don't worry about the dragon. He was killed by Bard and Levi. Erebor is safe. Oh, the wizard's news couldn't be doubted. The crowd cheered and supported Bard. Dragon-slaying hero, they shouted, spreading the news. Bard felt a little overwhelmed. He held up his hands to quiet them. Enough. Alfred got angry. He pointed at Gandalf and yelled, "You're just a bum, an old tramp. You think anyone's going to believe you? The people of Chanhu Town aren't leaving. You, boom, star." Gandalf swung his staff and knocked Alfred out cold. He landed right on his other eye, giving him a pair of shiners. I hate being called a beggar. Chapter 84. The army sets out. You are listening at novelfull.audio. People in Chanhu Town scrambled back home, quickly packing whatever belongings and food they could carry. This time, miraculously, no one was hurt or killed. They were evacuating in an organized fashion, headed towards the agreed-upon safe haven. Maybe this is a fresh start, one said. Another grumbled, doesn't feel different to me. Some townspeople complained, the mayor's got all the wealth. Besides a roof over our heads, what do we even own? If it weren't for Bud's constant welfare work, many of us wouldn't have enough to eat. That's the truth. I heard Valley City near Gushan is where our ancestors lived. They were rich and happy, the city was booming. I wish I could see a life like that. Bud listened to their talk in silence. He remembered the king's promise Thorin mentioned. Maybe that promise could be used to rebuild their homes and bring back Riverdale City's glory. Truth be told, even without the Oak Army, Chanhu Town wasn't ideal. Being a floating city in the middle of a lake had its problems. The building materials, the construction techniques, and the lack of upkeep meant Chanhu Town was shrinking every year, holding fewer and fewer people. Sooner or later, a big change was coming. Whether it was rebuilding, renovating, or moving somewhere else, it would cause trouble. Moving some townspeople to solid ground could be a good thing. Meanwhile, back in Chanhu Town, the evacuation was in full swing. In the Black Forest, around the same time, the elf messenger returned to the king's throne with a report. Gundabad. Thranduil muttered the name under his breath. Feeling a headache coming on. What's he doing up there? That place is crawling with orcs. The king sighed. At least nothing's happened yet. Relieved that Legolas was safe and Toriel was with him, Thranduil asked. Anything else to report? That question opened the floodgates. The dragon was killed by Levi and a human, and the dwarves had taken back Erebor. At this news, Thranduil almost sent troops to claim his treasure right then, but after that came word of tens of thousands of Oak soldiers. Thranduil paused. Gandalf had asked for the Woodland Kingdom to send troops. Erebor and Lake Town were closer to the Woodland Realm than Levi's home was to Bree. They were practically next-door neighbors, a day's ride away. If things went south, nobody could escape. If the Lonely Mountain and River Valley fell, the Woodland Kingdom would be stuck as an isolated island, surrounded by orcs and spiders. And there was another thing, Legolas was there. With his stubbornness, he wouldn't run. He'd be on the battlefield, guaranteed. No. Thranduil stood up and ordered his adjutant. Prepare the armor and weapons. Gather the elite troops. We're going to get back what's ours and help our allies. Allies? The adjutant looked confused. Weren't they just dwarves? Levi, Gandalf, and the humans of Lake Town. They're going to need our help. As for the dwarves, if they return our property and beg sincerely, maybe we'll give them a hand. An elite elven army set out with supplies. Far to the east of Lonely Mountain, in the Iron Hills, Dane looked grim as he heard the news from the thrush. Looks like Thorin could use some backup. All you lads who've shed orc blood, follow me. that the dwarves roared, grabbing their armor and chariots, and mounting their goats and boars to charge towards the lonely mountain. They were smaller than the elf army, but they were elite. The Iron Hills were named for their high iron ore content, but compared to other metal deposits, gold and silver were scarce. They had weapons, armor, chariots, heavy crossbows, the works. But when it came to money, they were flat broke. They had everything but cash. The two armies marched towards Gushan. Meanwhile, in Gushan, Levi looked at the vast, ruined valley and felt like he was losing his mind. Building a wall big enough to defend this place was going to be a massive project. Even if he used lava and water, it would be a ton of work, but not too big of a problem. Levi's liver would not be bad. Covering the whole battlefield with a wall would be impossible, but he could build a city. Time for the orcs to experience the wall of size. He wouldn't build something massive right away, but he could put up a ring of defense pretty fast, on top of the ruins of River Valley City. Levi stood in a high place and tried to claim this place, but a message popped up. Declaration failed. Already claimed. Levi couldn't claim land or buildings that were already owned or occupied, like the towns and camps he had seen that were someone else's territory, right? Levi smacked his forehead. Dale City might be a ruin, but Bard, the descendant of its lord, was still alive. He had the legal right to inherit Dale City. Bard, good thing it's Bard. He could just tell Bard, you don't want the townspeople to suffer, do you? And Bard would give up the territory, but that would have to wait until he got there. Levi picked up a bucket and filled it with magma, then stuffed materials in his backpack and started building the wall. He ran back to Lonely Mountain every so often to have the dwarves melt more magma. What do you need so much magma for? In the smelter, Duvalin wiped his brow and cranked the mining cable car to dump stones and slag into the furnace. It's a secret weapon, you'll see. A secret weapon? You gonna burn the orcs to death with it? Excuse me, but even they aren't dumb enough to jump in. It'll be useful. Trust me. Levi said mysteriously, then asked, by the way, where's your storage room? I might need some supplies. Mine. You'd have to ask Balin or Thorin. They know the place better. Mine? Thorin thought for a moment in front of the throne. I can take you there. You're building something. Yeah, something to deal with the orcs. Thorin nodded. I can help if you need it. I've wandered around for years, but I haven't lost my touch. I got it, but, do you have enough minerals here? I'm gonna need a lot of iron, and some gunpowder. Thorin laughed. Levi, Erebor's been occupied for over 100 years, but all the mineral deposits and metal reserves are untouched. If you can use it, you can make thousands of sets of armor. You need ore. Take whatever you want. That's what I'm saying. Thorin said generously, *, good luck with that, could one person empty Lonely Mountain in a few days? Chapter 85 High Wall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What's wrong? What happened? That when the mayor of Chanhu town woke up, he felt like the world was ending. Why were all the townspeople packing? What the? He grabbed a leftover mutton and mushroom pastry off the table, took a big bite, and then downed a whole glass of hard liquor. Wiping his hands on his clothes, he bellowed. Alfred! Anybody? Where is everyone? Can someone tell me what's going on? He ran outside and grabbed a passing citizen. What do you think you're doing? The Oak Army is coming. We're heading to Lonely Mountain for safety. The townsperson, clearly disgusted, brushed off the mayor's greasy hand and hurried away. Oak Army? Lonely Mountain? What the heck are you talking about? The mayor raged. Why is nobody telling me about this? If you have any sense, pack your stuff and get out of here, someone said. Just as the mayor was losing it, a familiar voice came from the side. Bud! Aren't you locked up? You escaped. Okay, how dare you escape from prison? Guards! Where are the guards? Get him! The mayor shouted, attracting attention. Soon, several guards came over and explained the situation. The mayor calmed down, squinting at Bud. Dragons, townspeople, whatever, all he cared about was how to make the best of this situation, the dragon-slaying hero. Now that was a good angle for business in Chanhu town. Mr. Mayor, I suggest you organize the guards to ensure a safe evacuation for everyone, a gentle voice said from behind. The mayor turned and saw an old man in a gray robe, an expression of disgust flashed across his face, and he quickly pulled out a handkerchief to cover his nose. Where did this smelly beggar come from? Gandalf took a deep breath and said, Lord Mayor, I'm no beggar. I'm a wizard, Gandalf the Grey. Wizards bring news and advice. Please. I don't care if you're a beggar or a wizard, just scram. I don't have to listen to you. The mayor shoved Gandalf aside and headed home, calling out to the guards, what are you staring at? Forget about those people and come help me pack my things. The guards looked at Bud, then at the mayor, unsure what to do. Gandalf gripped his staff tighter. Bard nodded at Gandalf, thwack, a blow from the staff, much harder than before, struck the mayor on the head, sending the not-so-slender guy crashing down, scattering debris. Help the townspeople, Gandalf told the guards calmly. They left without hesitation. Scattered applause broke out, spurred by the dragon-slaying hero and the wizard. People quickly organized and headed toward Lonely Mountain with their belongings and enough food to last a while. Bard was sweating, trying to manage everything. The mayor and his deputy had conveniently fainted and missed the departure, making Bard the de facto leader. But he had no experience running a whole town. Only with Gandalf's help could he ensure a smooth, mistake-free journey. People walked mostly in silence, eating dry rations. There was no hot food to be had. What's that? As they approached Erebor, someone pointed in another direction. The cry grabbed everyone's attention. Is that a wall? It's huge, people gasped. Gandalf narrowed his eyes. If I remember correctly, that's River Valley City's direction. It is Riverdale, Bard confirmed. I know it well. Wasn't that city destroyed? Whoosh, fireworks suddenly lit up the sky over River Valley City. Gandalf sighed with relief. Well, there you have it. Guess we don't need to go to Erebor. We can head straight for Riverdale. That doesn't look like a ruin, Bard said, surprised. There was nothing there 2 days ago. I'm sure of it. Perhaps you're right. Why don't we go take a look? Bard nodded, trusting the wise old man. He didn't really know what a wizard was, not having been in a position of power before, but he knew that the wizard and Levi were in cahoots. They were mentioned together in the refugee stories, so they probably weren't bad guys. Hello. Anybody home? Gandalf called out in front of the towering city gate, Creek, a mechanism word, and 3 thick iron gates rose, opening the city. Gandalf. Levi greeted them from atop the wall. I knew you'd be here, Levi. Gandalf knocked on the wall, estimating it was 6 meters thick, solid, and nearly 30 meters high, but although the wall was thick and high, it was bare, like it was made of stone pillars and hadn't been finished. As a temporary defense, though, it would do, and, Gandalf looked down, feeling heat radiating from the gate. Something was underneath. Don't just stand there, come on in, Levi shouted. Bard glanced at Gandalf, and with the wizard's nod, confidently directed the townspeople forward. They stared at the reassuring wall, gasped, and rushed into the city to rest. Make a fire and cook. We'll rest here for a while. After giving orders and settling their families, Bard and Gandalf went to greet Levi, who jumped off the wall. So this is what you meant by building a wall? I thought you just wanted to reinforce Erebor's defenses. Color me surprised. What's so great about repairing Erebor's wall? It's not even broken. Levi shrugged, conjured up a staircase, and invited Gandalf and Bard to climb up and look out over the valley. The city of Dale sat in the valley between the southwest and southeast ridges of Lonely Mountain. Only one side led into the city. In other words, Levi only needed one wall to create a solid defense, saving him a lot of work. He'd already built the prototype of the wall before the residents arrived, and he'd set up magma traps and deep pits. Just pull a lever, and enemies would fall right in. Looking at the solid wall, Gandalf lit his pipe, delighted. This is much tougher than a regular city wall. They build them piece by piece, but this wall looks like one big stone dug straight out of the ground. It's naturally one piece. What are you talking about? You're saying you just built this wall? Bard couldn't hold it in any longer. I can't even imagine it. Even if everyone in Long Lake Town worked together, with all the supplies we needed, it would still take years to build a wall this high. There's a lot you can't imagine, Gandalf said, blowing a smoke ring with a "What's so strange about that" look. Bard just gaped. The old man continued, but since you can build a wall, can your puppet also? Not right now. Then what's your pumpkin patch for? Gandalf pointed to a field under the wall. I thought you said you needed pumpkins to make those puppets, right? That's why I said not right now, but I didn't say it wasn't possible in the future. What do you mean? It all depends on the descendants of our River Valley Lord, Levi said, walking up to Bard with a sly grin. Master Bard, you wouldn't want the residents of Chanhu Town to suffer, would you? Chapter 86 The Impending War. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wait, what are you talking about? Bard was still reeling from the fact that Li Wei had built such a massive city wall all by himself. Now, out of nowhere, the conversation shifted to him. Of course not. Even without a war, the people here have suffered enough. Then it's time for you to make a choice. Levi looked at him and continued, Bard, as a descendant of Lord Jurian of River Valley City, you have a legitimate claim here that's recognized worldwide. Now, you need to give it up and hand over ownership of River Valley City to me. I can guarantee your safety if you do. Bard shook his head. This place is a wreck. So, what's your answer? Before I answer, can I ask something? Go ahead. I just want the people to have a place to live, a place where they don't have to be poor, hungry, and homeless. Ha! Levi chuckled and clapped Bard on the shoulder. I'm not some mustache-twirling villain trying to gobble up everything. The people can live wherever they want. I won't force them out. Bard looked at Levi, his emotions a jumble, then glanced at the old man smoking a pipe and sneaking glances their way. He sighed deeply. I feel like you two are playing me. All right, then, as a descendant of the Lord of River Valley City, I, Bard, voluntarily give up all inheritance rights to this land and give them to Levi. The agreement is sealed, Gandalf added. Territory River Valley City has been created. Number of territories, 2, congratulations on making the right call. I'm heading to Mount Gundabad next. See you around. Wait up. Let's go together. I want to see Thorin. Gandalf knocked out his pipe, ready to head down. You can catch up later. Whoosh, Levi had already strapped on his elytra and taken off. Gandalf's face twitched. I'm starting to think I won't be able to keep up with him. Later, it came to light that a significant portion of Gundabad's mineral storage was missing. Back in River Valley City, residents were surprised to find a 10-foot-tall iron golem patrolling the streets. The clanging of their footsteps was loud and impossible to ignore. A few of the younger kids, scared out of their minds, started crying when they saw the big metal guys. The crying caught the attention of some of the iron puppets. They gathered around and stared down at the children, remembering the wizard and Levi's instructions. Bard resisted the urge to draw his sword, and he stopped a couple of guards who were about to intervene. The towering puppet reached out its iron arms towards the kids. At the end of the arms, there was something colorful. Is that a flower? Bard was surprised, so were the kids. The bright flowers in the puppet's hands grabbed their attention instantly. They reached out, took the flowers, and smiled. Everyone, don't be scared. Bard stood on a higher point and shouted, these are puppets made by Levi to protect us. They're friendly. Levi? Is he a wizard? Some of the townspeople asked, curious. When people think of magic, the first thing that comes to mind is usually wizards. I'm not sure, but I can tell you that the Levi I'm talking about is the legend of the wild, the bane of the orcs, the master of magical construction, the most powerful human alive, the dragon-slaying warrior, Li Wei. Whoa, the townspeople exclaimed. Are they all the same person? That some people who hadn't heard the stories about Levi scratched their heads, confused. Yep, all the same guy. The people around him laughed, making the questioner blush. Why does he have so many names? I can't even keep track. The townsperson sighed, unaware that countless others around the world knew Levi by even more names. Meanwhile, in the misty mountains. This is a dangerous place, Toriel. Our people fought here in ages past. On a mountain in Gundabad, Legolas spoke to Toriel about the history of the area, battling against the wind. My mother died here, and my father never speaks of her. Not even a grave, much less memories. I have nothing of her. Toriel was silent for a moment. Hula, starred at a huge shadow passed overhead. Legolas quickly grabbed Toriel and pulled her down behind a rock to hide. What are those things? Bats. They're born for war, and they're usually orc spies. Buzz, starred at a deep horn sounded, and hordes of well-equipped orcs poured out of the fortress of Gundabad, marching in lockstep. The tall, imposing orc stood on high ground, bellowing orders. Full speed ahead. That's Balg, son of Azog. Legolas recognized the orc instantly. He was the one they had been tracking when they came out without permission. But they lost him halfway. Now they knew why. He was heading back to Gundabad to mobilize the army. We have to get back and warn everyone, now. The two elves raced towards Gundabad without stopping. This time, however, time wasn't on their side. In the wilderness not far from Gundabad, boom, the ground trembled. Suddenly, a giant worm burst from the earth. Its sharp fangs crushed the remaining rocks and swallowed them whole. As the giant worm burrowed back into the ground, an underground tunnel nearly 30 feet wide was complete. There were at least 10 tunnels like this. They led directly to Lonely Mountain. A warg rider galloped out of one of the tunnels and reported to the pale orc in front of him. Master, our army will be in position by tomorrow at the latest and can reach the battlefield quickly. Excellent. Azog turned, picked up a piece of raw meat, and fed it to the White Warg King beside him. Those dim-witted dwarves, they've forgotten about the ancient creatures under this land, the Earth-Eaters of Moria. Ground worms. After the Warg King swallowed the meat, Azog mounted him and rode to higher ground, looking down at his massive army from his former home of Moria. In the shadows of the mountains, countless orcs and wargs lined up in tight formations, ready for battle. On the slopes on both sides were giant beasts, 20+ feet tall, with catapults mounted on their backs. Each beast had at least 2 orcs guiding and operating it, ensuring it moved exactly where they needed it. Behind the siege beasts were modified creatures. Their eyes were blinded, their arms were replaced with chain mauls, and their feet were removed and replaced with spiked iron balls. In addition, there were small trolls, 10 to 12 feet tall, wielding mallets bigger than an adult human. They looked incredibly dangerous, but that wasn't all. Behind the trolls were elite Aulerks, covered head to toe in steel armor. They were larger than the trolls, their skin was harder than stone, and they weren't afraid of sunlight. Even without armor, ordinary weapons couldn't pierce them. These were the ultimate battlefield masters, Sauron's latest genetic engineering marvel. If they were sent to the front lines as vanguards, it would be devastating. Thinking about what was coming, Levi summoned the iron puppets in River Valley City even faster. Just as he was pulling some of Gushin's mineral storage and summoning hundreds of new iron puppets, Bard hurried over and warned him, "Look over there." Levi stopped what he was doing and looked in the direction Bard was pointing. On the plain, a neat patch of gold shimmered in the sun, dazzlingly bright. Elves. Levi said and paused what he was doing. The elves of Mirkwood, they're here. Thanks to Taoist friends and Shushan for the 500-point reward. Thank you to the children for the 500-point reward for this delicious drink. Thank you to Crazy and Crazy for the 500-point reward, and thank you to Mr. Yuanxiang for the 500-point reward. Thanks to Jimlu 2000 for the 200-point reward. Thank you to 3001, A Space Odyssey for the 100-point reward. Thank you to Wyanyi for the 100-point reward. Thank you friends who voted. Thank you for your support. Open. Chapter 87 War, 75K. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 87 War, 7.5k, Long Lake Town, Ghost Town. The mayor clawed his way out of the rubble, sneezed, and shivered, freezing. Everyone's bailed, Mayor. Let's get out of here. Alfred's voice, calm despite his usual arrogance, floated over. He sat on some steps, advising the mayor. He seemed almost competent. Only around the mayor did the deputy feel superior, IQ-wise or status-wise. That little feeling of being in control, pulling the strings, was intoxicating. Around Bud, he was just a bully, relying on tricks and a badge. Two different mindsets. One thing they did have in common, both sported a Shiner. Go. Go where? Lonely Mountain, duh. Plenty of room, weapons to protect folks. I wouldn't go near a place crawling with orcs if you paid me. The mayor stood, cursed, then stumbled back into what was left of his house, dragging out chests of valuables. Mayor, where are you headed? Anywhere's better than here. Whoosh, treasure loaded. The mayor paddled northwest, into the wasteland. Alfred watched him go, started to say something, then shut his mouth. He grabbed a smaller pile of treasure himself and headed towards Lonely Mountain, Dale's ruins. The woodland elves surrounded the city walls. Thranduil, riding an elk, stared at the newly built walls, puzzled. Is the city lord around? A head popped up over the wall. That'd be me. Levi. Ha. Thranduil raised an eyebrow, surprised. Boom, the city gate swung open. Don't just stand there, come on in. Been expecting you. Oh, heads up, I built some iron golems. They're friendly. Don't freak out. Thranduil nodded, waved the troops forward. The rhythmic thud of boots filled the air. The elves steered clear of the golems, flowing around them. Levi couldn't help but admire the smooth efficiency. Soon, the whole town was full of elves, standing in neat ranks. Distribute the supplies. The elves unloaded food and veggies from the forest to the Long Lake townsfolk. Cheers erupted. Thranduil dismounted and joined Levi and Bard on the wall. Bard, looking at the scene below, turned to Thranduil. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you. Levi's pumpkin patch and what everyone brought from home meant they had enough to eat, but it was boring. Thranduil had brought variety, even wine, which was a welcome addition now that winter was coming. No thanks needed. Thranduil brushed it off. I didn't come just for you. I'm here to collect what's mine. Classic elf, Levi smiled. They always acted like helping was just a coincidence, so you wouldn't feel obligated. Bard nodded, not knowing about Sundra but understanding the help was real. Speaking of, I didn't know Dale was rebuilt. What happened here? And Thranduil drew his sword, tapped the wall. It doesn't look like it was built brick by brick. It's like someone used powerful magic to wrench the stone out of the ground, forming a natural wall. Thranduil stopped. Grim, powerful beings who could do that existed, but they weren't supposed to meddle in Middle-earth. That'd be me. Levi placed 2 blocks, demonstrating. See? Easy. Ah. Construction magic. I've heard rumors. Thranduil swallowed it. Seems our allies are more powerful than we thought. Gandalf's around too, I hear. He's talking to Thorin. Might be a while before he gets back. I'll wait. Thranduil went to oversee setting up camp. Bard left to organize the townsfolk. Whoosh *. Levi jumped from the wall, then shot upwards, flying toward Lonely Mountain. Bilbo, catch. In Erebor's treasury, Thorin presented Bilbo with mithril chainmail. No sword can pierce this. It's as good as Levi's armor. Might come in handy. I'm not a warrior. I'm just a hobbit. Bilbo looked uncomfortable. It's a gift. A symbol of our friendship. Even dragon-sick, obsessed with gold, Thorin gave away a treasure that could buy the Shire. Thorin. Gandalf appeared, cutting the moment. You called for backup. Gandalf strode over, patted Bilbo, then turned to Thorin. Of course, Gandalf. As soon as I got the Arkenstone, I contacted Dane. Don't worry, he's here with the Iron Hills army. Should be here today. The army will be between us and anyone who wants Erebor's treasures. Nobody takes a coin. Gandalf frowned. You've changed, Thorin. Have I? Thorin lifted his chin. You're right. I'm not the little dwarf lord I was. Now I'm king under the mountain, sitting on a mountain of treasure. You. Gandalf's expression darkened, crap, just like his grandfather. Gandalf recognized the signs, dragon sickness. The Durin line always succumbed to it in Lonely Mountain, as potent as the ring. Thorin, you're sick. Very sick. Put down the Arkenstone before it's too late. You want me to give up the Arkenstone, after all I went through? Give up being king under the mountain? I'll let that slide, Gandalf. Once. Thorin turned and walked away. Without the Arkenstone, you wouldn't be king under the mountain. Whether I'm king or not isn't for a wizard to decide. You have no right to say that, Gandalf. Gandalf, furious, hurried after him. What are you doing? Waiting for Levi. Better than arguing with a wizard who wants me to give up what's mine. I'll talk to the guy who made it possible in the first place. Waiting for him? What are you two planning? Levi said there aren't enough mineral deposits in the mountain. He must have missed a room. We're meeting so I can show him. Not enough minerals. Gandalf, picturing the Iron Golem army, stroked his beard. His anger faded. Maybe there wasn't enough. He didn't say anything. Let Thorin figure it out. He didn't want to argue with a patient. After a few more words of praise for Bilbo, Gandalf left. The trio dispersed. At the ore warehouse, Thorin signaled Keely to open the gate, striding inside. Levi can't imagine our reserves. He probably thinks filling a blacksmith's shop is a lot. But we have mountains of minerals. He stopped. He rushed forward, grabbing the fence, staring at the empty warehouse, breathless. Maybe I'm lost too. Shaking his head, Thorin struggled to breathe. Keely, close the gate. Let's get some air. Okay. Keely followed, thinking his uncle sounded shaky, something scary inside. A moment later, in the air, Levi spotted two figures on Erebor's wall, landing in front of them. Hey. Not great. Thorin looked grim. Levi, I think the dragon ate our mineral deposits. I can't agree to any of your requests. The nicest way Thorin could put it. If it wasn't Levi, he might have chased him off, calm. 1/15th, star, Thorin thought, picturing the treasure, his treasure, mine, star, why give it away? Oh, well. Levi was a little disappointed, but it wasn't a big deal. He'd done what he needed to do. He just wanted to see if he could expand the Golem army. Saw Gandalf heading back. What did you two talk about? The wizard said things he shouldn't have, then left. He still has some sense. Ha! Levi was intrigued. Just then, the gates of Dale rose, revealing ranks of gold-armored soldiers. Are those elves? Close the gates. Alert! Thorin shouted, ringing Erebor's warning bell. Dwarves grabbed weapons, rushing to the gate. Elven army. What are they doing? Dwalin spotted them first. What do you think? They want our treasure now that the dragon's dead. Knew those elves were bad news. The dwarves muttered, crash, star. The elven army stopped before the wall. Thranduil stepped forward, looking up. Thorin, son of Thrain, I hear you've reclaimed Erebor. Your news is old. Thorin glared. What do you want? Here to congratulate me. Fine, I accept it. Otherwise, I suggest you get back to your forest. The shout echoed through the valley. The dwarves cheered. Thranduil waved. The elves drew their bows, aiming at the wall. The dwarves panicked, ducking. Thranduil gestured. The archers lowered their bows. The whole thing was precise. He glanced at Levi, who nodded. Thranduil turned to Thorin. I'm not hostile. Return what belongs to my people, and I'll leave. Not a single coin, Thorin roared. Thorin, we can't win. Balin tugged his sleeve, trying to reason. He supported returning the elves' property. Gandalf squeezed out of the elven ranks, shouting, these treasures will corrupt you, Thorin. They were theirs to begin with, Levi added. Thorin's face twitched. He was about to speak when Bard called out, Thorin, king under the mountain, remember your promise to me? Why bring that up now? I ask you to fulfill it. Return the elves' treasure. Never. Silence. Even Balin shut up. Is that your final word? Thranduil gripped his sword. One last time. Peace or war? Thorin didn't answer. A thrush landed on his shoulder, whispering in his ear. I think I know the answer. Reinforcements are through the valley. Thorin looked into the distance. They're coming. As Thranduil prepared to attack, a horn sounded. On a hill near Dale, a line of armored dwarves stood, chariots in front, heavy crossbows behind. The Iron Hills army had arrived. The humans in Dale didn't know the history. Under Bard's refuge in Erebor idea, they thought the dwarves were allies. Seeing the dwarf army, the city guards opened the gates. Thorin saw Dane waving. He cheered, I choose war, plop, star. A flying kick knocked Thorin down, silencing him. Time for war. Lie down. Levi, the dwarves were stunned. Some started to protest, but Levi drew his sword. They backed away, terrified. Their greatest ally, the legend who solved every problem, had turned against them. Nobody dared draw a sword. Silence fell. Thorin. Hey, Dane was still shouting. Are you there? Nobody paid attention. Everyone stared at Levi. Thranduil's eyes widened. Gandalf almost shouted, good. Bard was speechless. The dwarves pushed forward. Levi, what are you doing? Calm down. Put away the sword. If Thorin offended you, I'll apologize for him. We all will. Anything you want. Bilbo walked past the dwarves. Levi, you won't hurt him, right? Levi sheathed his sword, shaking his head. Of course not. Relax. Okay. Thorin stood, glaring at Levi, about to speak. Boom, star. The ground in the mountain center collapsed, worms erupted, crushing stone, tunnels opened, pouring out orcs and beasts. The dwarves paled. Attack. Line up. Dane organized the shield wall, spears forward, facing the elves. The elves turned to face the orcs. The consensus of Middle-earth, whatever the conflicts, unite against a common enemy. Buzz, star. On the mountain peak, Azog sent signals to the orc army. Damn it. Even with reinforcements arriving, Azog was furious. Where is all this magma coming from? Worms were being burned, forcing them to find new exits. There weren't many worms that size, and each loss was a big setback, but these were minor. The army covered the battlefield. Bard panicked, telling everyone, I have to organize the militia. On Erebor's wall, the dwarves saw the battle. Kili spoke first, I'm fighting outside. Who's with me? Me. Okay. We're in. The dwarves cheered. Stand down. Thorin's voice. What? Stand down. Thorin turned, walking towards the hall. His figure disappeared into the shadows. Levi was about to follow when Bilbo stopped him. Levi, do you have a rope? No, but I can make one. Oh, good. Bilbo ignored what he didn't understand. What are you doing? I can't just watch. Taking the rope, Bilbo tied one end to a stone, throwing the other end down and sliding down. Bilbo, Gandalf met him. Joining the battle? Stay with me. Thranduil was impressed by the hobbit's courage. Brave for a hobbit. If I'm not mistaken, you stole the prison key from under my nose. Impressive. Bilbo didn't know if it was praise or complaint. Elves were strange. Thank you. He replied. After a moment, the dwarves watched Bilbo climb down. I have to go too. Kili grabbed the rope, but Balin stopped him. No, Keely. The king gave no order. Keely clenched his fists, unwilling to stay. The dwarves' loyalty forced them to stand by. Koala, star. On the front line, the orc vanguard approached the dwarf shield wall. Bilbo whispered to Gandalf, "What about the elves? Aren't they fighting?" Gandalf didn't answer. Thranduil looked at the battlefield. Elves never yield to dwarves. Swish, star. The elves drew their swords, leaping onto the dwarf shields, striking the vanguard orcs, stopping them. Their light bodies allowed them to run across the dwarves' shields without causing them to collapse. Elves moved without a trace, light as the wind. When the elves were exhausted, Dane shouted, "Charge!" The dwarves stepped forward, relieving the elves. Dwarf courage never allows others to advance. "Follow me." Dane charged, swinging his hammer. "Welcome to the mountains," he shouted at the orcs, crushing their heads with each swing. Thranduil drew his sword, joining the battle. Under their leadership, the first orc attack was repelled, but their advantage faded under the weight of numbers. "Where's Levi? Where's Levi?" Gandalf was anxious. Where was their strongest fighter? "You sit in that hall with a crown, but you're more pitiful than ever." In front of the throne, Dwalin spoke through tears. "Get out. I'll kill you myself." Thorin drew his sword, forcing the dwarf out. His words echoed in Thorin's mind. Other words from his past surfaced. "I hope you're not like your grandfather. Bud. Those treasures will kill you. Gandalf. They have madness in their blood. Elrond. Just another mad king. Thranduil. Are we going to stand by and watch? Balin. Wake up. It's not too late. Levi. Thorin looked up, spotting a figure in the empty hall. "Don't think you. This is for our friendship." Boom, star. Levi punched Thorin in the face, knocking him down. "You. Stop talking, drink." Levi poured milk down Thorin's throat. Gudong, star. "Enough." Thorin's eyes cleared. He took a breath, understanding. His will fought the dragon sickness. He also had to fight Levi. "Not enough." Tons, star. "Stop. I haven't finished drinking. Keep going." "I said stop." Thorin shoved Levi away. "Stop. I understand." He wiped his face, shouting, "Listen to me. I'm not my grandfather." Clang, star. The crown hit the floor. The king under the mountain put on his helmet. After the roar, Thorin gasped, his eyes clear. He looked at Levi. "Let's fight." Buzz, star. On Erebor's wall, the trumpet sounded, echoing across the battlefield. Boom, star. The warning bell rang, announcing the return of the king under the mountain. Crunch, star. The gate of Lonely Mountain opened, and 13 figures rushed out. Thorin. "Finally met you." Dane greeted Thorin, feeling invincible. He could smash another 100 orcs. The other dwarves felt it too. The orcs were confused. Why were these dwarves suddenly crazy? "Kill." Thorin charged, sword and shield in hand. A royal dwarf, Keely and Philly cleared the way, protecting the king. The battle was balanced. The orcs pushed back. On the front line, Gandalf chopped down an orc. Bilbo stabbed another. Gandalf kept looking back, searching for someone. Finally, from the gate, a warrior in black armor holding an elven sword stepped into the sun. The orcs instinctively backed away, clutching their weapons. Gandalf smiled. Finally. Battlefield situation: free camp, humans, dwarves, elves, evil camp, orcs, wargs, free camp commanders, Gandalf, Thranduil, Dane Ironfoot, Bard the Archer, Thorin Oakenshield, Levi, orc commanders, Azog, Bolger. The ratio of the number of soldiers, approximately, 1:5, the battle began. Chapter 88 Garrison, 10K. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dragon sickness: it's a curse that clings to the treasure of the Lonely Mountain, lasting as long as the treasure is nearby. Dumping milk on someone won't break the curse, it just offers temporary relief. As long as you're still in the mountain, the effects will return, but after relying on milk to briefly clear his head, Thorin finally realized what he was doing. he developed mental fortitude. Outside the gates of Erebor, the oaks were rapidly being cleared away, bringing quiet to the area. The dwarves and elves pressed forward to eliminate the remaining enemies. "Glad to see you made it, Levi." Gandalf quickly approached him to discuss the situation. "Things aren't too bad. Most of the oaks and the big beasts are outside the wall. We just need to block the tunnel leading in to slow them down." Fortunately, flowing underground magma surrounded the battlefield, causing most of the intended wormhole tunnels to fail. Only the tunnel that was supposed to surface just outside the wall was successfully opened. The single slip-up was on the eastern mountainside, where the earthworms luckily dug above the magma layer, creating a tunnel and allowing in the advanced troops and a few giant beasts. But that was it, honestly. In Levi's opinion, this tunnel shouldn't even exist. It seemed to be forced into place. Gandalf looked at the wormhole in the distance. "I'm guessing their original plans didn't include our sudden defensive upgrades." Levi's wall construction and Oxidon's tunnel excavation were nearly simultaneous. It's probably what happens when the tunnelers are past the halfway point and realize the destination isn't what they expected. They couldn't continue and cut their losses. Of course not. He had a feeling something like that was going to happen. "I'll go take a look at the cave entrance over there. The dwarf cavalry can cover you. Their goats are very maneuverable and perfect for that kind of terrain." Goats. Levi glanced at the dwarves' mounts. Those goats were pretty useful. As long as there was a foothold, they could climb to the eagles' nests on top of the misty mountains. They were built for all-terrain combat. They were easier to handle than horses on rough terrain. Maybe he should consider raising some, but now. "Since when do I need cover, Gandalf? At this point, nothing on this battlefield can stop me. There aren't even any archers in that advance force." Their success was due to their sudden appearance and numbers. Levi strapped on his elytra, grabbed some fireworks, and launched into the air, heading straight for the tunnel on the mountainside east of the battlefield, where orcs were still pouring out. Just then, a troll lumbered out. Seeing the UFO rushing toward it, it raised its club to take a swing. Whoosh! Just before landing, Levi instantly equipped his armor, drew his sword, and slammed into the troll with a boom. The sword pierced the troll's skull. Driven by inertia, Levi and the troll slid to a stop. The troll died instantly. He also bowled over a dozen oaks. A skill orb dropped. Basic swordsmanship. Not bad. Levi upgraded his skill on the spot. Where did the human come from? Kill him. Huffing and puffing, the orcs, who had been living in the pits of Moria, came one by one, weapons raised, ready to tear Levi apart. They were even more savage than the orcs of the Misty Mountains. This time, they were in for a surprise. Boom. Blessed with a sweeping blade attack, a whole row of oaks seemed to have been hit by a truck. They burst into flames and fell to the ground, wailing, then lay still, but no matter how powerful the attack or how many oaks fell, more instantly filled the gap, seemingly endless. Levi suddenly thought, forget 20,000 oaks, it would take 3 days and 3 nights to butcher 20,000 pigs. Snap, snap, snap. He unscientifically placed TNT on both sides of the tunnel wall. The flint sparked, and the fuses began to burn. Levi quickly retreated out of the tunnel. Just when the oaks thought they had finally scared him off, the TNT exploded, blowing a huge hole in the middle of the tunnel. The terrain was destroyed, slowing the advancing army. Taking advantage of the opening, Levi placed blocks and climbed to the tunnel's top, dumping buckets of magma over the edge. A wall of magma was formed. The only tunnel into the wall was blocked. He did it. Behind the battlefield, Bilbo spotted the red glow of magma coming from the tunnel. No, he's just getting started, Gandalf corrected. Attack. With the enemy's path blocked, only the advance force remained inside the wall. Take them out, and they could focus on the main force outside. The leaders raised their weapons and led the army to surround them. Levi placed more blocks at the cave entrance and flew to rejoin the battle. Wait for me. I need more skill orbs. The legend of the wilderness began to slaughter again. The Oak advance force put up a desperate fight, trapped on all sides. Normally, they would have already broken. This time, the Oaks were charging forward, even with heavy casualties. The dwarves were motivated by their blood feud with the orcs and the support of a strong leader. The same was true for the Oaks. They had their own blood feuds and leaders. Buzz, the semaphore flashed. Azeg crushed a rock in anger and changed the order. It's him again. He could recognize that black figure, Levi, even from across the mountain, a real thorn in his side. Levi was responsible for blocking them in. When in doubt, blame the human. Breach the wall. A dozen stone-throwing behemoths adjusted their aim in the distance as a bunch of oaks struggled to haul stones into place. Fire. Whoosh. Massive stones, 6 to 10 feet across, smashed into the city wall. Instead of collapsing, though, blocks fell off where they hit, a volley of stones, but only a thin layer chipped away. Azeg was dumbfounded. Something was wrong with this wall. Was this River Valley City? Baicheng wasn't this tough. What's going on? His adjutant, Bolger, grabbed a short oak scout and lifted him into the air. There weren't any walls here a few days ago. The scout stammered. Lie, and I'll feed you to the wargs piece by piece. The scout was too scared to speak. He might be telling the truth. Azeg spoke. It's our enemy, Levi, the cube-obsessed wizard of the wilderness. Bolger dropped the scout and stood at the edge of the podium, looking down. I'm interested in him. The mace in his hand begged for action. Azeg ignored him. Gather a small squad, preferably with archers. He had seen the enemy flying in the air. Yes. Bolger left to organize the soldiers. The orc horn sounded. Azeg pulled the trigger again and signaled with the flag. The oaks gathered in front of River Valley City. Charged the siege beast. Roar. A 25-foot-tall troll charged the wall, a cone-shaped boulder on its head. Hunters, rangers, and longbowmen from Lake Town concentrated fire, but couldn't pierce its skin. Boom. The beast slammed into the bottom of the wall. This wall was a real pain, physically and mentally. If it were weaker, it would have fallen already. Keep going. Azeg ordered. A troll picked up the battering ram and attacked again. The orcs waited to pour in and cause a massacre when the wall broke. They didn't know the iron golems had been drawn in and were waiting behind the wall. In the dusty armory of River Valley City, Bard organized the evacuation of the townspeople. Get everyone able to fight. Grab weapons and armor. River Valley City had a rich supply of weapons and armor, but these items were useless against a dragon and were left when the city was destroyed. Because of the dragon, no one had dared to take them. Now they were sharp. All fighting forces to the wall. Women, children, and the elderly to safe places. Under Bard's guidance, people moved fast. Suddenly, he grabbed a woman with impressive breasts and metal clanking. Hey! What do you think you're doing? I want to go to a safe place. The woman shouted, but never looked up. Alfred. Bard was disgusted by this guy's shamelessness. He ripped off the gold coins from Alfred's chest and tossed them aside, grabbing his collar. I said the men go to the front, didn't you hear? Master, I'm going. Bard shoved a sword in his hand. Don't let me see you from behind. Alfred gritted his teeth and, looking back, followed the army forward. Click, the back gate facing Erebor opened. 2 armies rushed in, heading to the walls on both sides, elves and dwarves. We have cleared the orcs inside the wall. What's your situation here? Thranduil asked Bard. They can't break through the wall for now. Bard looked up at the fortress and the iron golems and felt secure. With this equipment, even if the wall was breached, they would be fine. Besides, they couldn't break it. Hey! Dane rode in on a boar and said to Thranduil. Put your army on the other side. Leave the wide side of the stairs to me, so we can move our heavy crossbows. Thranduil waved his hand and switched direction with the dwarves. Thorin and the expedition members arrived. He stared at Thranduil. Before Thranduil could speak, Thorin said, I want to invite the king of the woodland to Erebor for talks. I accept. Thranduil looked down at Thorin. The sober king just nodded and rushed to the wall with his companions and the dwarf army. Levi and Gandalf arrived late and watched the armies changing directions. Wait, there's no need. Click. Levi created stone steps and widened the stairs. Amazing. Much more practical than Gandalf's magic, Dane exclaimed, calling for the heavy crossbows. Gandalf's face tightened. The Lord of the Iron Hills was a little rude. Let those big guys taste our power. Don't miss, boys, the dwarves shouted. Balin was the first to use the heavy crossbow, plop. The spinning heavy arrow hit the ogre rushing from the side, sending it tumbling. Huh, the old warrior laughed. Fire, whoosh. More heavy crossbows blasted into the orcs. Don't move, the orc leader shouted, but a heavy arrow flew toward him, he dodged and stood back, as if nothing happened. What are you looking at? Mind your own business, the leader bared his teeth, the dwarves shouted and fired heavy arrows. Let them taste our power, the elves were exerting their strength, compared to the dwarves' weapons, the elves' bows were more flexible and accurate. Fire, a volley of arrows. Many orcs fell, even some smaller ogres fell, a dozen arrows in their bodies. Damn. Wait. Let the advance Oleg wait, let the giant beast go first, and the archers cover. Azog stared at the battlefield and started the attack, the siege beast attacks, the wall shakes. Levi, Thorin hurried to Levi and said, can you dig a hole in the middle of the wall for me to jump on that guy? I'll deal with it, before Levi could answer, Keely spoke. It's too dangerous, Thorin. I'll go with you. Me too, Philly followed. The royal bloodline needs to be preserved, you're still young. Thorin seemed strong, but was older than Balin, whose hair was white. No need. Levi interrupted, click, as soon as the siege beast walked to the wall, the ground suddenly vanished. The door lying on the ground retracted, revealing magma, the beast fell into the magma pit. Roar. The beast's cry resonated before being silenced. Azog looked ugly. Transport building materials, fill the roads, avoid abnormal places, and attack from multiple directions. He ordered. On the wall, Levi called Bard. Gather a group of archers. Actually, call everyone, and I'll give you something good. What? Crossbows and fireworks. Bard was confused. Set off fireworks. You'll know when you get the people. Soon, everyone who could use bows and crossbows gathered in front of Levi. Levi checked his inventory and was silent. There are too many. Leave 100 with the best aim, and take the rest back. Click. A workbench appeared. Iron, wood, and wire were consumed, creating crossbows for 100 people. After firing the crossbows, Levi made a lot of fireworks and piled them to the side. Here's your ammo. Try it out. Bard, you go first. Will this work? Although he was better with a bow, Bard knew crossbows. Fireworks, shot as arrows. Although he was confused, it was Levi, so Bard had to try to attach the fireworks to the crossbow as arrows. Crack. It worked. Very good, you have learned how to load the bullets, now tell the townspeople how to use this thing, and then lead them to bomb the orcs. A moment later, a group of human crossbowmen appeared on the wall. Gandalf turned his head and saw it was Bard and Levi and stopped caring. Gandalf turned his head again. Fireworks. Aim and shoot, Levi shouted. Hundreds of fireworks flew out, toward the orcs and giant beasts near the wall, boom. The orcs were blown away, their armor charred. The ogres fell. What was that? 100 wizards releasing magic. Azog was sweating. What else? No, he suddenly saw a firework explode early. They have a short range. Retreat 100 meters, the signal was sent, and the orcs retreated. What a hassle. Looking at the signals on Raven Hill, Levi changed his elytra. What are you going to do? Gandalf knew that meant Levi was going far. Beheading. Beheading? Whoosh! Levi jumped off the wall and flew up. The orc archers shot, but only a few arrows hit, but it hurt. Levi gritted his teeth. He couldn't wear his breastplate with the elytra, and the breastplate reduced the most damage. Without it, even swords could break his defense, let alone arrows. Whoosh! Levi rose, out of the archer's range. He looked at the battlefield. Outside the wall, the orcs and wargs were endless. Stone-throwing beasts attacked the wall. Unbelievable. Levi couldn't imagine how they could win this battle without him. The key was beheading. Levi looked toward Azeg's command platform. Raven Ridge, bats hovered over the watchtower, blocking the sunlight. Levi put away the ender pearl. It was 100% going to hit the bats. Gandalf would have to clear them, or it would be wasted. But why was Azeg so cowardly with those archers? Whoosh! Levi flew back to the city. Gandalf, can you drive those bats away? Let me see. Gandalf looked up. Or you can drive me away. Levi held his forehead. This was a bit too much. A siege beast attacked the wall. Gandalf was about to use his magic to drive it away. Levi shot an arrow and ignited it. The beast fell and rolled. Okay, good. Gandalf nodded, realizing how Radagast felt when he drove him away in Dol Guldur. You're powerful, you can fight, you look down on me. The situation is not very good. Standing on the wall, Levi looked at the horizon. He saw the orcs moving, an army joining from behind. The orcs from the Misty Mountains had reinforcements. Too many. Even Levi felt a headache. How many rendering resources would this take? A while later, the commanders gathered. Looking at the scene outside, there were few casualties, but this situation was not very good. Let them come, I can guard this wall until I die. That the dwarves were optimistic. Die. Thranduil shook his head. We must come up with some ideas. Thorin was silent. Bard loaded the crossbow and looked for a chance to shoot. Boom! There were vibrations. The siege beasts were attacking the walls at various places. A stone was thrown at the gate. While everyone was discussing, Levi grabbed Bilbo and pushed him aside. Levi! Bilbo called out. The stone passed by. Levi raised his shield, but the shield was broken. He lost a few drops of blood. Don't ask why he didn't dodge, he was just curious. Levi! Several people shouted. May the protection of the Vala protect you. Thranduil prayed. Gandalf jumped down. Thorin and Bard ran down. Bilbo was stunned. No. Levi had saved his life. It's okay, I just wanted to see how powerful that thing is. Levi brushed off the dust and climbed back to the meeting. You're not dead yet. Azeg saw every detail of the battlefield and panicked. He had told him to aim the stone specifically at Levi. Don't take Levi's attack head-on. His attack will work, and it will be accompanied by fire. His fire will be extinguished immediately when it encounters water. The logistics troops where Levi is must be ready to transport water to the front line at any time. Don't get close to the iron gate lying on the ground. The iron gate will open at any time, revealing the magma trap below. Before the city wall is breached, the infantry should not get within 100 meters of the city wall. Their crossbowmen will fire short-range explosives. Even if there are holes in the city wall, it will not collapse. It can only be destroyed bit by bit. Levi can fly, archers must be in place at all times, and the bat group must also focus on covering his position to interfere in the air. Those square magmas, as long as you use something larger to block the source, the surrounding flowing magma will slowly disappear. There is a red block that will fall and explode within a few seconds after it starts to glow. Units other than behemoths and ogres will definitely die. And, Levi seems to be unkillable. Azeg counted the experience and felt numb. The orc commander had been forced into thinking like Levi, and had to find a way according to his rules. Some common sense failed, so new rules had to be found. Azeg stared at the corner of the wall, not saying a word. This was the most difficult battle in his life, but the problem was that the number of people on the opposite side was not that large. There were less than 5,000 people. He had gathered most of the elite troops of Moria and the Misty Mountains, and war beasts provided by the Dark Lord. Even Mordor could hardly gather such an army, but that was common in the First Age, and there were warriors as strong as Levi at that time. Not only were there some but many, but in contrast, there were many Balrogs, and one could be as powerful as an army. Azeg wanted to ask Sauron if he had any Balrogs to use now. Our attack is at a disadvantage. Borg said. Many attacks were invalidated. Don't worry. It's almost there. Boom. In a magma pool filled with orcs, the magma falling from the wall was covered by the stones thrown up, and the heavy crossbows, bows and arrows, fireworks and TNT were blocked by a whole row of orlogs and war beasts in front of them with their lives. The wall that made the orcs feel desperate finally had a small gap under the concentrated bombing of the catapults and the desperate attacks of the siege beasts. In order to open such a gap, almost all the elite beasts had to be consumed. Ha ha ha, kill. Azog laughed and ordered the attack. Buzz. The orcs rushed impatiently along the small gap. Finally broke this damn wall. But after entering, they were confused again. Where were the elves, dwarves, and humans? Were they afraid? Soon, they got an answer. Clang clang clang, densely packed iron golems surrounded and rushed toward these vanguards. Bang clang. The iron golems were like a group of sharks. They rushed over and blocked the gap with their bodies, knocking the orcs away one by one. Charged the beasts. The Alegs wrestled with the iron golems. For the orcs, the 3-meter-tall iron golems were giants, but now, facing the orlogs who were at least 4 or 5 meters tall and covered in steel armor, the iron golems were just dwarfs. Dang. Orlog swung his hammer, and the iron golems were pushed back. Taking advantage of this time, the remaining war beast stepped into the city. With one kick, he stepped an iron golem into the mud, cracking its body. Die. Levi jumped down, stabbed the beast, and set it on fire. The dwarves of the expedition team followed. Some cut the heels, some smashed the toes, and some shot arrows at the buttocks, making the giant beast flustered. Under the attacks of Levi and the dwarves, it fell. It dropped a dodge skill orb. The skin is quite thick. Ding. After dealing with the beast, Levi turned to the Alegs. The sword and the iron intersected. It's so hard. The Aleg was numb from Levi's beating. They all had almost full armor value and 70 or 80 life points. There were only 3 of them, and they overturned some iron golems, but were soon overwhelmed. In the end, they were beaten to death. Fortunately, they don't come out in mass numbers. Levi sighed. If there were Alegs opening the way for the orc army, the iron golems would be doomed. There was not much mineral storage in the Lonely Mountain, and Levi had summoned less than 1,000 iron golems, but they could beat 10 times the number of orcs. But the orcs outside were more than 10 times that of iron golems. What is that strange thing? Azog was numb. But if you think this can stop our army, you are wrong. We still have one army that has not been dispatched. The flag signal was sent again. Beasts attack. Densely packed wargs rushed to the gap. This was another army. Don't attack. Levi blocked the gap. I think this is a bit too much now. What? Gandalf asked. The difficulty of this battle, why are they so fierce? They are not always like this. No, I mean, forget it. What? Gandalf was confused. I decided to respect the mechanism. Levi said, thanks to everyone who voted and left comments. Today, I will add more words, 10,000 words, and I will try to finish this as soon as possible. Chapter 89 Taking the Initiative. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When you're in a dungeon and the puzzle is supposed to involve a delicate mechanism, but you just brute force it with overpowered stats, that's pretty much the situation. Facing this many enemies head-on is a losing proposition. Levi's the only one crazy enough to pull this kind of stunt. They can definitely hold the city defensively, they can definitely outlast the orcs in a war of attrition. Looking at the troops, they're clearly ready for a long siege. Plenty of food and water, so the orcs will be the ones suffering the longer this goes on. The orcs' morale will crack first, guaranteed, but a battle dragging on for months, maybe even a year. That's way too long, and Levi isn't sure what else might go wrong if they try to just wait it out. Scratch that, something already went wrong. Levi watched the orcs building a massive siege ladder and sighed. This battle feels like the difficulty is constantly being adjusted. What do you mean? Gandalf, after hacking down another orc, rushed to the wall and stood beside Levi. I mean it's time to end this now. After the dwarves wrapped things up on their side and returned, the leaders gathered again at the main gate. Levi spoke first during the brief lull in the fighting. We can't stall any longer. He pointed to the orc engineering crew in the distance. They're building something different. A siege ladder, a big one. Thorin recognized it. Thranduil added, those orcs have an unsettling talent for building weapons of war and torture. They were born for this kind of thing. They won't get it up to the wall. Bard gestured to the firework crossbow team behind him. We can blow those ladders to bits. True, but remember there are so many orcs you can barely see the horizon. How many shots do your crossbows have? Gandalf asked Bard. Bard looked to Levi, Levi looked to Thorin. Thorin glanced around and finally said, our gunpowder reserves aren't exactly endless. After Levi's endless supply of resources, he was hesitant to say that there was no limit to a certain resource in the Lonely Mountain. Honestly, in an era where firearms were just a niche interest and bombs weren't even invented, gunpowder wasn't in high demand. The gunpowder stored for making flares was basically all they had. The point is, they'd never relied on it as a main resource, so they were lucky to have what they did. What are you planning? Gandalf asked Levi. Sticking with the original plan, decapitation. Orcs are naturally chaotic. Without a leader to keep them in line, they'll fight each other before they fight anyone else. Gandalf knew this well. He'd often use it to cause trouble in orc camps. After getting pounded on for this long, it's time to take the fight to them. If they don't do something, this equipment will be wasted, but the security over there is tight, bats swarming the sky, archers all around the command platform. Flying in with Elytra is out of the question, an aerial approach is impossible, a direct assault on the ground would be tough too. Those orcs would never just stand by and watch. Even if they didn't fight, they could block the path, unless, Levi looked at his pickaxe, digging deep enough might avoid the worms, then a surprise attack from below would definitely catch Azog off guard. It would take a long time to dig, though. The distance and mountain thickness wouldn't allow for a quick attack, and it might not be accurate. He didn't have a 3D map. We can cover you. Dane, seeing Levi lost in thought, walked over and pointed to the base of the wall. See those chariots? I guarantee they'll tear up the battlefield like nothing else. Nothing can stop them except those behemoths. They're low on behemoths. The siege had exhausted those. My boys can get you to the ruins at the mountain's base. After that, I trust you can handle the rest. Dane had watched Levi's combat skills, when the wall was cleared of enemies just now. The armor was also invulnerable, making people want to disassemble it and study what material it was, but let's not talk about these. The important thing is that Dane and his hammer both think Levi can do it. I'm in. Thorin spoke up. He'd never abandon the chance to face Azog, even if it meant death. We're going with you. Seeing the king head into battle, Keely and Philly exchanged glances and immediately said, count us in. And we can drive the chariots. The dwarves from the expedition stepped forward. They'd proven themselves in many battles, showing they were elite dwarves ready for anything. Balin smiled. I might be old, but I haven't lost my touch. I won't waste a single crossbow bolt. Great, lots of energy. Levi, although surprised, decided to go with the plan. Successful party package. He nodded and glanced at Gandalf, who gave him a reassuring look. Leave this side of the wall to me. If another giant beast shows up, I'll handle it. You can leave with a clear mind. All right. The battle plan was set. Thranduil, Bard, Dine, and Gandalf would defend the city and provide cover. Levi, Thorin, and the expedition team would lead a chariot assault to take out Azog. Just as everyone was ready to grab their crossbows and ammo, a voice came from behind. Me too. Bilbo. Thorin looked amused. He jumped out of the chariot, walked up to Bilbo, and said, Uncle Baggins, this isn't something you can get involved in. As a hobbit, you belong in a garden, an armchair, and a cozy study, not a battlefield filled with danger and death. Bilbo opened his mouth, unsure what to say. Goodbye, we'll see you soon. I can help, trust me. Bilbo chased after them, but Gandalf stopped him. Bilbo, I never doubted your bravery, but do you know what's out there? War, blood, and death. You've done enough, truly. We stay here and trust our friends. Hey, you, Gandalf pointed to a timid-looking human soldier nearby. Watch this hobbit and don't let him leave. Yes, Master Wizard, I promise I'll do that. The human soldier ran over quickly. For some reason, he kept his head down, as if he was afraid of being recognized. Gandalf wasn't concerned. He gave his instructions, returned to the wall, and frowned as he looked to the sky, as if waiting for something. That hiccup was over quickly. At the city entrance, the chariots were lined up, and the soldiers on the wall watched the people below with bated breath. Sons of Durin, Thorin drew his sword and shouted to the expedition team and chariot crews, charge! Whoosh, the lever was pulled, the city gates opened, and 5 vicious-looking, metallic assault chariots roared out, each equipped with a powerful armor-piercing automatic crossbow. These weapons had been used in the previous defensive battles, but now they were ready to show their might. Behind the chariots, a force of dwarf goat cavalry thundered out. Dine had carefully selected the best dwarves for the cavalry, men with the most blood on their shields and the strongest horns on their goats. Surround them, Azog ordered, furious. They had a city, why were they trying to die outside? Did they even see how many troops he had? What gave them the courage? Chapter 90 Unexpected Support. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Under Azog's command, the front line of orcs braced themselves, shields up and spears aimed at the oncoming chariots and riders, but these orcs couldn't even begin to imagine the dwarves' gear or Levi's tactics. Whoosh, firework crossbows blasted gaps in the orc ranks. Each shot packed a 10-point punch, the force alone knocking shields right out of their hands. Right behind came the dwarves' goat cavalry. Those goats had huge, curved horns, tough as shields. Unlike horses, if they slammed into spears, the other guy was going to be in trouble. These were the same goats that could bust through an elf shield wall, remember? These skinny orcs didn't stand a chance. With a bone-jarring crash, the goat cavalry plowed into the formation, sending orcs flying. Then came the chariots, also pulled by those big-horned goats. 5 chariots charged, goats lowering their heads and bulldozing through a whole row of orcs. The wheels, without slowing a bit, crunched over the orcs left sprawled on the ground. The sharp alloy blades on the wheels spun like buzzsaws, slicing any orc who tried to get close into bloody halves, armor and all, leaving a crimson streak on the ground. The entire formation was ripped open, leaving a wide path of carnage. The wider the chariot, the wider the road. Levi glanced back at the whirling blades on the chariot wheels, making a mental note. That thing wouldn't just scratch an orc's armor, it would shred me. Touch it and you're airborne. Get hit and you're dead. The power of technology, huh? The dwarf cavalry and chariots turned the vanguard into a massacre. The ground was littered with orc corpses. The formation collapsed instantly. 5 of those chariots were enough to dismantle an infantry formation, and there was no putting them back together. Behemoths. Azog roared, time for the big guns. These chariots were tough on infantry, but a single behemoth could flip them with a swipe. Our behemoths took heavy losses, Borg reminded him. Levi's gadgets had taken out almost all the thickest, biggest, toughest behemoths during the siege. Now there are only ogres left. Not even an Oleg. Then send them, clank, clank, the front line of orcs parted to make way for trolls. Ogres weren't quite as good as behemoths, but they could still handle chariots, if they got the chance. Swoosh, Levi fired a flaming arrow, setting the lead troll ablaze. The flames wouldn't quit, even if it rolled on the ground. If you weren't immune to fire, you were going to burn for a while. Orcs scrambled to douse the burning troll, but Levi and the dwarves wouldn't just stand there. Both Levi's flaming arrows and the armor-piercing crossbows on the chariots did work. Those crossbows were cranking out thick steel bolts and swiveling to track the enemy. Levi's fire arrows were basically just a bonus. The crossbows chewed through the troll's advance. They couldn't even touch a chariot before they dropped. Damn it! Azog watched the chariots and cavalry approach, his stomach churning. He knew what Levi was doing. One behemoth, just one, would be enough to stop those rickety chariots, or even an Oleg, but the behemoths and Olegs had been sent to attack the city. Once the wall fell, the few survivors were sent in as shock troops, and then, nothing. Now all that was left were the stone-throwing behemoths, and they weren't exactly frontline troops. We can't let them get close. Send in the wargs. Azeg barked, switching to plan B, *buzz, star, the signal flags went up, and wargs poured out from the sides. This is going to be a problem. Wargs were frail, easily killed, but there were a lot of them and they were fast, and goats were their natural prey. If the wargs got close, the goats were dead, and the chariots would be stranded. Prepare for engagement. Thorin yelled from the front of the chariot. He was about to have to dismount. Balin cranked the crossbow, taking aim at the wargs, asking over his shoulder, "Levi, got any tricks up your sleeve? Like that magic storm Gandalf did in Goblin Town, can you do that?" "We'd be better off hoping for reinforcements to deal with the wargs," Levi said, cutting off that line of thought. "Get ready to fight on foot. We're close. We can push through. Once we reach the ruins of the sentry tower, I'll block the road so they can't follow." "Okay. It'll just take a little longer." Levi drew his sword, watching the oncoming warg army, ready to charge, but then, just as the chariot fire began to falter, and the goats were about to be swarmed, a cry echoed from above. Levi looked up and saw 7 or 8 giant eagles swooping down, their talons ripping apart the wargs. A tall figure leaped from one of the eagles, landing with a thump and transforming into a massive bear. He charged into the warg pack, clearing a path for the chariots. Bjorn, the skin changer. "Huh." Levi looked at Balin, and Balin looked back. "Levi, you were right. Reinforcements from the sky." "What is this, a magic call for backup?" Thorin joked. "I just said it." Levi sighed. The eagles showed up at the perfect time. "Hey!" Radagast the Brown waved from the back of an eagle, leaning over to call to Levi, "We're here. We're not late. Just in time." Levi called back. "Ha! Who's going to say I'm useless now?" Radagast said, obviously directing the comment at Gandalf. Neither Gandalf nor the White Council had wanted Radagast to come along when they faced Sauron. Now he could finally prove his worth. After dropping Levi and company at Ravenhill, the eagles dived back into the fight. Bjorn kept tearing through the wargs. "Can't beat Levi." "Fine, I'll take you on." Azeg couldn't stand it and sent a squad to take down the bear. Even giant bears have their limits. If Bjorn could take on an army, there would be more than one skin changer left in the world. After his initial charge, Bjorn was slowing, wearing down. The eagles were also having trouble. Another group of ogres lumbered out of the worm tunnel, their rocky skin scraped against the eagle's talons, and they swung their clubs. Not much of a threat, but annoying. "I think we should pull back. I saw Gandalf on the wall over there." Radagast and the eagles seemed to be of one mind. Soon the eagles, bearing the brown wizard and Bjorn, wheeled away toward the wall, leaving behind a frustrated orc army and a few useless ogres. Once the eagle and the bear were gone, the orcs went back to searching for Levi and the dwarves. They found the ruins guarded by a wall made of the same stuff as the impregnable one.